Counter-Strike, Smash Bros, Minecraft, and this game, plus tons of emulation and other interesting homebrew. You know, a lot of people think that there isn't really a whole lot going on in the emulation and homebrew scene for the Nintendo DS, and this applies for the DSi as well. But I'm here to tell you that now in 2023, there's a whole lot of new stuff going on that's super exciting, and all you need is an R4 card that you can get for around $10. So in this video, I want to take a quick look at the Nintendo DS emulation and homebrew scene, and I'm going to be using an old school white Nintendo DS Lite for this video. But again, this applies for the DSi as well, and even to the 3DS, but that's a whole different world, and I'm not even going to talk about that here. So once again, you need a $10 R4 card, which you can get in a number of places, and often you can get them cheaper than $10 if you want to buy them from AliExpress or a similar place. But I got this one for, I believe, $12 on Amazon, just because I wanted to get the quick Amazon Prime shipping. And I'll mention this later in the video as well, but Temu offers all new users 50% off of their first orders, so you can get an R4 card for 50% off on Temu, and I'll put some instructions down in this video's description on how to specifically get that deal, so if that interests you, you can go and check that out. So yeah, let's take a quick look at what you get in the box. So first off, I should say that there's different manufacturers of these cards as far as I'm aware, or maybe it's the same manufacturer making different types of cards, but there's all kinds of different colors and types and styles. There's old ones, there's new ones, and I'm recording this at the end of 2023, or at least towards the end, and I've already seen some 2024 cards out, and from what I can tell, most of them are basically the same thing. There might be some small differences. Older cards might need different kernels, different software, but yeah, it's basically going to be the same thing, so you don't need to worry too much about which card you get. Just do a little bit of research, and there's great resources online. For example, there's a subreddit just called Flashcards that has tons of information, but I decided to get this model right here because, you know, it matches my DS, so I mean, I guess I had to go for that one. So once you get your R4 card in the mail, you're going to get an interesting shaped box with some shiny text on the side. Nothing too interesting. Maybe it's important to note the website that they direct you to download the kernel. So as you can see on the side of the box, this specific model supports up to a 32GB MicroSD card, which I decided to use, but in all honesty is overkill, just because with what you're working with, the files generally speaking are going to be pretty small, and you could get by with 8GB or even less. So opening up the box, we have a warning here. It's hot, so we need to be careful. Maybe wear an oven mitt or something when you're opening this. I don't know, but yeah, it's hot, guys. So inside we have a little tray which just contains the R4 card itself, as you can see here. And then under it, I believe a cheap microSD card reader, which I don't have any intentions of using, but if you don't have one, that might be helpful for you, I guess. So taking a look at the card itself, nothing too surprising. It's just a similar sized, I believe it might be a tiny bit thicker. Here's me comparing it to a DS game, so maybe it's a little bit bigger, but it's just basically the same size as a standard DS cartridge, just so it can fit in your DS cartridge slot, obviously. The only difference is on the back, you have a small microSD card reader, so you can load your files into the card and then put it into your R4 card and then put that into your DS. And everything should work perfect, nothing too complicated, nothing we need to talk about too much more. So after you get your R4 card unboxed, really all you need to do to get it set up is go online and download the correct kernel. So you could take a look at the website that's listed on the front of the box, if there is one there, and try downloading the kernel from there. But what I did, and what I would probably recommend you doing as well, is going online and doing a little bit of research to see if there's a better option out there for you, or if there's one that maybe you'd want more. So I decided to go to the subreddit called Flashcards, and I saw a couple posts there with my exact card and saw the recommended kernels, and I saw a version there that contained all the emulators already in the zip file with the kernel. And the setup is super easy. Really what you need to do is download the file, probably unzip it, and drag the folders onto the root of your SD card, and there you go, you're set up. So first, I wanted to take a look at the homebrew games that I found the most interesting, and there's a lot of new stuff on here, like I mentioned earlier, that to me is just super innovative, and it's like, what? They got that to work on the DS, and you know, I've been having a lot of fun with it, so let's take a peek. So first off, we have Counter-Strike. Yes, this is really Counter-Strike for the Nintendo DS. It seems to be modeled after Counter-Strike 1.6, and it was created by a French developer named Unity, I believe it's pronounced. But this game is just super cool, you know, and I'll admit it's a little awkward playing first-person shooters on the DS with a touchscreen, okay? It also has the option to use the buttons to aim, but to me, I'd rather just use the touchscreen because it seems a little bit faster and you can be more accurate with that. but taking a look at it, it really looks like Counter-Strike. There's not too many differences. I'm sure you can make some differences out in your mind and say, look, there's no hand holding the gun. Maybe the map is a teeny bit different. The textures are probably a little bit different. But when you actually get to playing it, it's very similar to Counter-Strike, and I had a blast playing this because I used to play a lot of CSGO years and years ago. I haven't played in a long time, but I used to really enjoy it. And as far as I can tell, the only map that you can play on here is Dust 2. But I mean, that's probably the best map on Counter-Strike anyway, so yeah. And the interesting part about this was that the developer at one point actually got multiplayer working on this. So actual multiplayer Counter-Strike working on the Nintendo DS. And I might put some footage on screen of him showing this off. And yeah, it actually works between different DSs playing Counter-Strike online. And he did have a server running at one point. I never tried it out. I'm not sure if it still works, but if that's something that interests you, go and check that out. And we also have DS Craft, which is trying to be more accurate to Minecraft, and this is an older game and it's not perfect. It's kind of a crude version of Minecraft Creative, but if you just want to kill a few minutes, build something simple and just have a little fun and say, look, I'm playing Minecraft on my DS Lite, yeah, this is a good game for you. Sure, it's kind of limited, but yeah, it's just Minecraft on the DS, and I think you don't really need to say a whole lot more than that. So next up we have Super Smash Bros, okay? And I'm going to be honest with this one, it isn't super great. There's multiple versions that people have attempted to make of bringing Smash Bros over to the DS, and most of them have their flaws, okay? The version that I'm playing and that you're seeing right now isn't perfect. It's pretty simplistic, and I think you can tell it's not exactly feature-packed. It's pretty limited, it's pretty bare bones compared to an official release, but it's fun, okay? It's not something you're probably going to be playing all the time or for a super long amount of time. But just to say, once again, I'm playing Super Smash Bros. On the Nintendo DS. It's just a fun thing to do, and you can have a little fun playing this for a few minutes, and I know I certainly did as well. And we also have the game Fireworlds. Fireworlds is actually really fun. It was created, I think maybe even a decade ago. This is an older game, but it doesn't even feel like Homebrew. It actually feels like a full-fledged actual DS game. It's feature-packed. There's not many glitches in it or anything like that that you get from some DS Homebrew games. It just feels like a normal game. Basically, you play as these little energy dots, I believe. You have to go and collect all the energy in the level and then jump into a black hole at the end. And a lot of different features are then introduced where you can control multiple energy dots, I forget what they actually call them in the game, and jump on top of each other and try to get stuff from a higher level and all this. It's super fun, and I definitely recommend you go and play it because there's tons of levels in this game. There's a ton of content for a free Homebrew game, so yeah guys, go and definitely check this one out. I've been having a lot of fun playing it. And last but not least, this is probably my favorite game to ever get ported over the DS, and I'm not just joking about this, I kind of am joking a little bit, but not entirely. This is the dinosaur game from Google Chrome. I don't know its official name, but I'm sure you've all seen it. Probably most of you have played it at one point or another. When your internet goes out on Google Chrome and that dinosaur appears and you click it or double tap the space bar or whatever it is, you can start playing the dinosaur game. And yeah, you just have to jump over the cactuses, dodge the birds, stuff like this, and see how long you can go. And it actually feels like the version on Google Chrome. You really wouldn't know any different if you're playing it on the DS. You'd think, yeah, this basically feels like an actual Google Chrome experience. And it's actually developed by the same guy that created Counter-Strike for the DS, Funity. So yeah, go and show him some love. He has a YouTube channel where he shows some of his projects, and yeah, super talented, super great stuff. And we can't forget about the emulation aspect of the R4 card. That's why a lot of people buy them. And I'll be honest, the emulation isn't perfect. It's still pretty good. It's enjoyable. There's not too many issues with it, but if you want something better, you could always try something out like the Ambernic RG35XX, which I've talked about on YouTube. And using something like Temu's 50% off discount that they give to all new users, you can get a device like this that can emulate much better than your Nintendo DS for like $30 and can go all the way up to the PS1. So if you're interested in getting something like this, which is something dedicated, actually created for emulation, I'll put a link down in the description to the video I did on this, and it tells you how to get the 50% off discount. But looking at the Nintendo DS, you actually can emulate a lot more than you'd think on such an old system, okay? The DS is really aging. You can play Game Boy Advance games, and as far as I understand now, the Game Boy Advance isn't actually emulation, because if you remember, you can put a Game Boy Advance cartridge into your DS and play it on there. So this somehow plays the game not as emulation, but just through the standard hardware that you'd use to play a Game Boy Advance cartridge. So I didn't experience any weird hiccups or anything going on when playing Game Boy Advance ROMs through my MicroSD card. Yeah, everything works great, and you can enjoy all your favorite Game Boy Advance games and not have to lug around a ton of cartridges. If you want to play Game Boy Advance games, this is a great option as well. Not to mention the fact that you can now play Game Boy and Game Boy Color games on your your DS with no problem. Everything has worked pretty good. For me, some of the issues in emulation started to show actually when I was playing the NES. I don't know what the deal was. There was just a lot of blocks of pixels that would just glitch and go over to the side and have big blank spots, and some of the audio was a little off at times. I'll admit that. Sometimes it's not perfect and there are errors, and the emulation is a little inaccurate. Certain hacks had to be put in place so the games would run better because, yeah, it's old hardware. It's not perfect for emulation. But for the most part, when you're playing these games, like I said, on NES or even Super Nintendo, it works good for the most part, better than you think. I've had fun playing it and didn't experience many issues. And I think if you're just playing this casually, you're playing a DS game and you say, you know, I want to play a Super Nintendo game, and you hop over to your emulation, play some Super Nintendo. It's just casual. It's probably not going to be something you're doing for hours on end. You're probably not going to be buying a DS as a dedicated system only for emulation. It's probably just going to be, for most people, an afterthought that you do for a short amount of time. If that's your use for it, I don't think you'll have too many complaints. You can also emulate Sega Genesis as well as Sega Master System. And last but not least, we have the ability to play DS games from your microSD card. Now, this is probably my favorite feature on here. The homebrew is fun too, but I've had the most fun playing DS games from my microSD card. And the reason why is it's kind of tough to emulate DS games and 3DS games as well, but when you're looking at emulating a game that was made for the DS, that was intended to be used with two screens, and the bottom screen being a touchscreen, it can be a little awkward to emulate these games sometimes, and for me it's just fun to play them in the way that they were actually intended. It makes everything a little more smooth, and it's just a little nostalgic because I grew up having a Nintendo DS. I loved playing it, and just playing it the way it was intended on an actual DS, it's just been so fun. And with this, you really will have no idea that you're playing it on your R4 card off of a microSD card. There's no way, at least that I could tell, to differentiate between playing it on a microSD card or actually putting the physical game cartridge in your DS. The games run perfectly fine. There's no issues. I haven't noticed any differences whatsoever. I've had no freezing, nothing like that. Everything runs perfect at full speed. The graphics look the same. The audio sounds the same. Everything is cool. Everything works great. And I've been having a ton of fun playing all these classic DS games, man. It's just so fun. So I think a lot of people are going to be getting the R4 card for this purpose. And the emulation, the homebrew is just an afterthought, but a pleasant afterthought. Something that you can have a lot of fun doing on the side, a lot of fun experimenting with, and just seeing the fun and sometimes kind of bizarre homebrew applications. But it's just something that I have so much fun messing around with because, especially when you're looking into the homebrew applications, a lot of times you're going to find old videos from 10, 12 years ago of grainy 240p video reviews. I just enjoy it. I have a lot of fun with it. So yeah, guys, the R4 card is great in 2023, and going forward there's still going to be a community of people who are dedicated to the Nintendo DS, and they're still developing fun homebrew and improving emulation and all of this. So if you already own a Nintendo DS, I think buying an R4 card for it is a no-brainer. But if you don't already have a DS and you're thinking about buying one of these for emulation, I probably wouldn't recommend it unless you really want to play DS games natively on a DS, then yeah, go for that. And to show my Temu affiliate link one more time, if you actually want something that can emulate better than this, it can go all the way up to the PS1. I'd recommend something like the Anbernic RG35XX, which you can get for 50% off, around $30 on Temu, if you use the special deal which I explain how to get in my video, and that'll be linked down below one more time. So if you enjoyed this video and want to see more content like this, I'd really appreciate it if you could leave a like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next video. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.